have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was me and Rank. I mean, how do you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast.
And welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast. This is episode 63, and we've got a special one for you. We have let me see if I get this right here, the Master of the Dank Stat. Is that what we're kind of going with these days, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, we all had official titles, and we were trying to decide between me and Graham who gets Director of Data Analytics. And I was like, I don't really care about a title. You could just call me Director of Dank Stats, which was like something I called what I did, just tweeting out dank stats all day. And John Hansen also refers to me as the company's DFS czar. So those are just badass titles that don't really mean anything.
See, I got to get one of those. I don't have nothing that. I just got like the village idiot kind of persona working for me right now, which, I embrace it. You are what you are. And you're the dank stat guy. I'm the village idiot. And Tara's the brains behind the whole operation here because she's probably forgotten more about football than I'll ever remember, to be honest with you. So the first thing I want to we talk a little bit about football off the get-go of the show. It's kind of what we have to do. It feels like we're contractually obligated to do so. So the first thing I found very interesting when I was stalking you on the internet was the fact that you live in Houston, Texas, but you are a Giants season ticket holder. Is that still holding true to this day, or?
Yeah, I gave it up finally last year. It just didn't make a lot of sense. I just would cost me so much money. But yeah, I was going to Giants games since I was 2 years old, regularly with my dad since I was 10 years old, diehard Giants fan. But nowadays, it's just I have so much money invested in DFS and so many takes out on the table. I want to succeed. I don't really watch the Giants too much, more of just, probably watching a better team where I have more money invested from a DFS perspective.
So where did that love for the Giants kind of come from? We'll talk about this a little bit later, but I'm kind of interested. You're right in New York. Is that where you're originally from?
Oh, yeah. So I grew up in northern New Jersey, and my dad was a diehard Giants fan, and he had season tickets. So just fell for the Giants due to that. Moved to Houston 2.5 years ago.
Okay, so that's not too bad. That's commitment to still be a season ticket holder for a year after moving it completely across the country. You probably still caught more Giants games than, well, myself for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I work all throughout the season, so it doesn't really afford me any time to fly out to New Jersey, catch a game. Working all day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning. So it's just not really possible. But yeah, I mean, also there was something where the games were so fun to go to. And then they had the new stadium with the PSLs, and it just really destroyed the experience where it was a bunch of diehards. I knew everyone in my section. Oh, there's Tom and Janet who've been going to games for 50 years. And then with the PSLs, it was just, the fan base really thinned out. I remember standing up with my buddy on a 4th and 1 situation, losing our minds cheering, and this girl with her boyfriend sitting under a blanket who's been looking at her iPad the entire time was like, "Hey, can you stand down?" And I'm like, "No, it's 4th and 1. Are you kidding me?" So it just it really kind of destroyed the experience for me. But I don't know. Go Giants.
There's something to be said about those older stadiums. They're a little bit run down, but they feel like home. You talk about where Washington used to play, the whole stadium would rumble. It was so big, it held so many people, and it'd be a crazy atmosphere. Now you don't get that crazy atmosphere. You get an entertainment perspective, but you kind of lose that touch. It's tough to explain. You know what I mean? There's something said about the old barns, whether it's hockey or football or whatnot. Because I remember us here, we had about a 4,000 seat hockey arena for our junior team that would be pretty much sold out, and the place would be packed, like elbow to elbow. People are going crazy, and then you kind of expand it to more seats for more people, and you actually get less people, and you lose that whole atmosphere. And I kind of miss that with the old NFL, those old bleacher seats, where people have to stand up because they'll freeze their backside if they sit down at any point.
Yeah, I also just hate the new stadium. I thought the old stadium was better. You talked about it, people energized, shaking. I remember the Giants 41-0 beatdown against the Vikings the year they went to the Super Bowl in the playoffs. And like the entire stadium was just shaking, electric. The new stadium, I think, is inferior. It takes like 8 escalators to get up to the third level when before it only took 1. And then, like I said, with the PSLs, it just priced out the long-time season ticket holders. So you just got like a different, less enthusiastic fan base. Like tailgating was such a big thing for me and my dad. We always wanted to be, never wanted to be late to be early. We were like the first people there and had crazy tailgates. We served lobster and, deep fried turkey and things like that. And it just like with the new stadium, just none of that was there anymore.
So, Scott, I'm in Houston, too. Did you get a chance before to make it out to a Houston game? And how does it compare to a Giants game? Because I know it's a little bit different of a situation in terms of the long-term loyalty of a fan base.
No, I haven't, and I'm slacking. I want to catch an Astros game, a Rockets game. But, yeah, like I said, it's just tough to, find time to go to a game when, like, I'm doing my big DFS update article, like, right until lock. And then I'm just, like, burnt out from the entire season. But hopefully maybe like a week 18 this year. That's when things start to die down.
Nice. All right. Let's see. So maybe we want to start off a little bit with, let's start off with the Scott's Barrett, my guys for the draft. Who are your guys?
Well, I'll start with the easy one, which is Kyle Pitts, who I tweeted out in December. I said, listen, I'm going to tweet this out now while the games are on so no one notices, but Kyle Pitts is going to be in the Hall of Fame. I haven't felt this good about a fantasy eligible prospect since Christian McCaffrey, when I got a ton of shit for saying he was going to be the next LaDainian Tomlinson. He was the 101 in that class. And so this is the most confident I felt in any fantasy eligible prospect in a really long time. And then Daniel Jeremiah just 2 months ago said that he thinks he's going to be a Hall of Fame player. The NFL thinks, since Quentin Nelson, the best odds of being a Hall of Fame player. I absolutely adore him. The majority of my leagues are tight end premium. And so you look at a player like him. I talked to Mike Renner, who said, hey, if he were just a wide receiver, he'd be a top 3 wide receiver in this class. I talked to Brett Whitefield. Hey, he might be the best wide receiver in this class. And that's what you want from a fantasy perspective. You want basically wide receivers masquerading as tight ends. Guys like Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, who aren't going to be blocking. They're going to be running routes. They're going to be putting up wide receiver 1 production at the tight end position, which is just so valuable. 16 fantasy points per game from a tight end just matters so much more than 16 from a wide receiver. So really love him. My model adored him. Second most athletic tight end since at least 2000. And then my guy would be Elijah Moore, but I'll give you guys a chance to chime in on Kyle Pitts.
So yeah, I love Pitts. Where do you see him landing? Do you see this draft being where teams are going to try and trade up for that 4th pick, trying to get somebody, maybe a quarterback that they're looking for? Or do you see Pitts being off the board as soon as those first 3 go?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be quarterback, and then that's where things get tricky. And this is a legitimate knock. I think he is landing spot transcendent. But, I mean, Atlanta, I think, would be fairly ideal. A chance to learn from Julio Jones. They might trade Julio Jones, and even then, I mean, a dominant force tied to Matt Ryan for however long he's going to remain in the league. Cincinnati, I mean, there's a lot of target competition there. But I mean, Joe Burrow's exciting. Miami, still a lot of target competition. Tua Tagovailoa, a lot less exciting. And then I don't think he goes beyond that. But I mean, those landing spots aren't. I mean, Detroit's not great with Hawkinson there. Maybe Carolina, but yeah, I think it's either Atlanta or Cincinnati or Miami.
Nice.
Those are all great spots too. I think Miami's interesting because they got Gesicki still already there. That 2 tight end set they could actually throw out there. I think that can make things very interesting. Then Miami wants to get kind of crazy. They go grab another wide receiver on the back end if they wanted to at pick 22-ish, 23-ish, something like that. I can't remember now. I'm so ready for this draft to start. I've already forgotten like everything about the draft. You know what I mean? We've already talked about it so much. You start to forget everything that you thought you knew.
Yeah, I will just say I don't love Miami in addition to Tua and the target competition, but it's weird how that 12 personnel would shake out when they basically used Gesicki like a slot wide receiver last year, which would be, Pitts' game. He could also line up outside as a wide receiver. But it just seems redundant to Gesicki. So I don't know if they'd trade Gesicki then or what they would do there. I mean, Kyle Pitts is, light years away from Gesicki as a prospect. But yeah, I mean, again, not a landing spot I love, but I am hearing that they traded up for that pick with either Chase or Pitts in mind.
So we know Pitts is one of my guys for Scott Barrett. First of all, you kind of mentioned Elijah Moore. You were sliding him in there. Who else are you like? You know what? I really like this guy. This guy's good. This guy's a good chance to make it.
Yeah. Well, I'll just dig a little deeper on Elijah, who I had very early on as the wide receiver 4, and now it's great to hear that apparently the NFL consensus has come around. He's the wide receiver 4, and I think it just makes a ton of sense. You look at his production profile, and it's off the charts. Young, as a true freshman, was a full-time player, was a productive receiver in an Ole Miss offense with A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, who are 2 to 3 years older. The next year, one of the best age-adjusted yardage market share seasons in my database, better than Rashad Bateman's, who everyone's drooling over. He had 4.4 times as many receiving yards as the next closest Ole Miss wide receiver. And then this is my favorite stat. I don't know why no one talks about this, but I think he just had the most yards from scrimmage per game of any wide receiver in any season ever. Power 5 wide receivers only, so like rule out Jerry Rice. It was at least since the year 2000, maybe ever. So he was just so dominant. I mean, Devonta Smith won the Heisman, and guess what? Elijah had more receiving yards per game in a shorter season. And then you factor in he's a PPR cheat code, 10.8 receptions per game last year. He has the 4.35 wheels. So he is a capable deep threat. He led all wide receivers in deep receiving yards per game, top 3 in receiving yards per deep target. So he does have that Tyler Lockett early career T.Y. Hilton levels of upside as well. I think he's going to be an immediate producer wherever he goes. So I have him in a lot of best ball leagues, have him in almost all of my dynasty teams. So really, really love him. And I'll pull up my ranks now, see if I can find another guy for you guys.
While you're pulling that up, where's your ideal landing spot for him?
Yeah, that's easy. That's either Tennessee, where he's paired back up with former teammate A.J. Brown. There's about 192 vacated targets there. So, like I said, PPR cheat code, that would be phenomenal. Green Bay would also be awesome. My guy, Brett Whitefield over at FTN, told me he doesn't have Elijah nearly as high as I do. Part of that reasoning is the size and catch radius. But he said, hey, if he goes to Green Bay, this guy's a Hall of Famer. And like me, we just said Kyle Pitts was. I think he agrees Kyle Pitts was, but we don't throw that term around too often. So those would be the 2 ideal landing spots, and I think they're both very much in play.
You're not concerned with his size at all?
No, I don't think so. What was interesting about him and Waddle, who are both a little undersized, is that they actually ranked top 3 in this class, Terrace Marshall's 2, in contested catch rate. And then you also see he's fearless over the middle, phenomenal after the catch. He took a pounding, like I said, 10.8 catches per game. So he has that speed, which is what you do want to see from a smaller sized wide receiver. He also has an elite 3-cone, an elite short shuttle, both of those ranking like top 40 since the year 2000. So yeah, the concern, the size is unideal, but the athleticism in other areas, other things he showed on tape and in stats, I think made up for that.
Nice. Do you see him projecting more as a slot receiver or as an outside receiver?
Yeah, so some of the really smart film analysts I talked to, like Mike Renner, they think he can be serviceable outside. They think he could play outside maybe year 2. I mean, his stats out wide were pretty great, high-end yards per route run average, but he just didn't see a lot of usage there. I actually think he's slot only. And so from an NFL perspective, that's worth penalizing him a little bit. From a fantasy perspective, I don't think that matters too much. Like I said, PPR cheat code, Wes Welker kind of guy. But yeah, from an NFL perspective, that's not ideal. We've seen the NFL devalue slot wide receivers. They don't get paid as much. They don't get drafted as highly. They're more replaceable. If you look at like the top 25 career receiving yards seasons by a slot wide receiver since 2000, it's like a bunch of guys who are drafted in round 7, round 6, UDFA, where you don't see that with outside wide receivers. And Lane Kiffin, too, his head coach at Ole Miss, a smart guy, said very clearly, I love this guy. He reminds me of Steve Smith. Mm-hmm. He's a round 1 player, but he's unique in that he's a round 1 slot. And you don't see that very often. He really emphasized that point. So if Lane Kiffin's going to say he's a slot in the NFL, I think he's a slot in the NFL.
Nice.
Maybe let's wrap it up with, you good enough for you? I was going to say.
Yeah, that's good enough for me there. I don't know with Elijah Moore, that I know that the slot class being as deep as it is, I was worried that the slot receivers would get kind of knocked for that because there's so much depth at that position rather than the outside guys. So if Lane Kiffin's kind of promoting Elijah Moore as that first round kind of guy, I can't see Lane having any biased opinion on this one. But
yeah, so I mean, Waddle's like that too. I think Waddle is slot only. Renner disagrees, other people disagree. But what's unique with both of them is, like I said, that vertical dimension to their game where they could be Tyler Lockett-esque, early career T.Y. Hilton-esque, running a great 9 route. But yeah, this is a weird class. It's a unique class. It's an undersized class, and it's a slot-heavy class. And like I said, the NFL does tend to devalue slots. But I think these two guys are unique in their own way and special enough.
Nice. So I think that's maybe enough football talk. We do like 5 or 10 minutes of football talk. We're about 18 now, so let's get into learning a little bit more about you, Scott. So first question, usually reserved for our guy Kyle, Calvin. Say it's the bottom of the 9th. The coach is calling in a closer, and that's you. What's your theme music? What are you coming into?
Oh man. What is that? Like the Darth Vader theme music. I want something badass like that.
I like it. What's the name of that? This is
Thus Spake Zarathustra might be close to that. It's like in the same kind of badass theme. I'm not sure what.
Was that English? What was that?
That sounded like German there, but no, you can say just about anything on this show. We don't actually check the facts. We just kind of throw stuff out there and see if it sticks. So you can throw
that is a song by Richard Strauss featured in Space Odyssey 2001. I'm going to pull up the Darth Vader theme music. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Imperial March. Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, this may be the first time in the history of the ViperCast we're actually checking our facts live.
I mean, we're not. The guest is. You see what's going on here?
So I'm still on brand.
Unique answers. All right. So kind of diving back into sports a little bit. Tell us a little bit about you growing up and, what sports did you play? What were your favorite? Well, we know your favorite teams, the Giants. So maybe tell us about what was your favorite sport to play and then your favorite Giant growing up.
My favorite sport to play was baseball. It was my first love. I actually started in this industry as a fantasy baseball writer, diehard Mets fan. I wanted to be a pitcher when I grew up, but I was like too scared to ever take the mound. It was just like, I don't know, like too much pressure. Like I was scared of the success maybe, or scared of the failure. My least favorite sport was soccer, but I was like phenomenal at it. I was a sweeper. I was like lights out awesome. But I just like never liked it. And they played on Sundays, and I wanted to start going to the Giants games with my dad. So started doing that, which maybe worked out better for me because, absorb his knowledge of the game and, it really helped me to fall in love with football. And, that's what I do for a living now. So favorite Giant, I really like, this is the same thing for baseball too, where like my favorite baseball player is Ray Ordonez. I really like, guys who aren't good. I just like have a soft spot in my heart for them. So I liked Ron Dane a lot. I was like so excited for him, and they didn't pan out, and then everyone hated him, and I still I would stick up for him. And I was just like, I don't know. I met him once. He was a cool guy.
That's cool. I like the reasoning.
Yeah, I'm like weirdly a hipster with like things like that, favorite cities and favorite players. So just someone needed to defend the guy, so that was me.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he really hurt Wisconsin running backs for a few years after the draft, after what had happened to him in the NFL. Teams are kind of shying away from him. But I kind of want to you kind of touched on it earlier here, and Tarek was talking about the importance of sports growing up, and it seemed like you and your dad had a special bond when it came to the Giants and probably sports as well. Do you want to talk a little bit on that? And
had an amazing dad, just really loved, and ignited my love for sports. And, it was something that drew us together. He passed away, unfortunately, but he couldn't have been any more proud. I had like 600 followers on Twitter, and I did like a 5-minute guest spot on ESPN radio, and my connection in my apartment was so shitty. And it like was like the worst spot of all time, where like I cut out and then I like got back on, and like I mumbled and stuttered through the answers, but he couldn't have been more proud. He pulled the mailman aside and he was like, "You got to listen to this." Played it on his phone. It was like, "This is my son on ESPN radio." So it was something that brought us together. He never got to see me make it full time, unfortunately, in the industry. That happened about like 4 months prior. He passed away, but he never doubted my success. I was like going nowhere in life. Was like a bartender, and I wasn't any good at it. And he just like never doubted me. It just had full faith it was going to work out, and then it did. So.
Oh, that's awesome. I absolutely love hearing that story there. Awesome. Just kind of, we're in draft season, so I kind of have to ask a little bit of draft type questions. But I put a little bit of a different spin on this because I know you and Barfield, you got your fantasy points kind of guys going on over there. You guys have added some new members. So say we got the fantasy points crew all together. We all three guys in some spandex onesies, took you out to Indianapolis, got you at the combine, and you guys are only competing against one another. Who's going to wow the scouts with their skill set? Because you look like you're in still pretty good shape there. I think you could still run a little bit, eh?
No, not really. Pretty out of shape. It's just this is what I do though, where it's just like during the season, I just like totally abuse my body and just like take zero care of myself. I like don't sleep at all, and I just like work endless hours, just huddled over a keyboard. I eat Taco Bell, and then I eat White Castle, then I eat Taco Bell a day, and that's my diet. Abuse caffeine, like disgusting amounts of caffeine. And then once the season ends, I just go like the completely opposite route where, I hit the gym super hard. I eat super clean, but I've actually been slacking a little bit lately, just trying to get those big draft articles up. Graham Barfield, he's quietly jacked. He's quietly pretty jacked. He hits the gym maybe every single day. So he's definitely the most athletic among us.
I'd be interested to see who. I would love to get the fantasy points guys to do the Wonder Relic test, because you guys got some smart guys over there. Like seriously, I think there's some guys who'd be scoring in the 40s on those tests. You look around that board, at least some guys who've been around for a while and know a thing or two.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I actually think intelligence is overrated. So like
I've been seeing that for years.
I mean, it's just convenient for me if that's true, but it's just, absorbing from like the all-time greats. Like Bill Belichick is a genius, sure, but is he really the smartest mind in football, or is he just the most hardworking, the most organized mind, able to compartmentalize things really well and humble in a way that like the great Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett are, where they know the circle of their own competency and they don't want to step outside of that. They're like, I know what I know, and I'm going to act on that. And then when it comes time to defer to someone smarter than me or someone more knowledgeable in a different area, I'm going to do that. And so that humility makes them smarter or better than you see a lot of genuinely really smart people. I will just say the smartest person I think I've ever talked to is Adam Harstad, a Football Guys writer, where like, okay, I'm pretty smart maybe. And then you just talk to him and it's just like, he's like a different species, how smart he is, just mind blowing. And not just is he smart, but he's right. He's just always right. And he explains it in a way simple enough someone, much dumber like me can understand. What does it take to be a great fantasy analyst? Humility is important. Like I just said, being smart is important, but maybe not as smart as, being really logical. My longtime DFS partner, John Proctor, is a partner at his law firm, and he's just the most logical person I've ever. He just like cuts through BS so well. And where I'm great at stats, he's still kicking my ass in DFS most weeks because he just can read through the lines, cut through the BS, and is just like so logical in how he goes about things.
I kind of like how you talked about your White Castle, Taco Bell, this whole regimen in your whole in-season persona, because you create and you put out there about 250 articles, give or take, almost yearly, or at least you were doing that up to a couple of years ago. Some of those articles I'm looking at here, metrics that matter, your daily fantasy focus, 98 stats to know, the expected fantasy points report, say that 5 times fast, the bell cow report, advanced matchup plays, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of top end articles that you've put out there. If I keep on digging in here a little bit more, you were also nominated for 2 nominations with the FSWA this year for both Best Football Ongoing Series and DFS Writer of the Year. So you're constantly putting out this new material. But is there some specific article that you go like, yeah, that's my baby right there. That's the one that means the most to you?
4-time nominee, 0-time winner, but that's okay.
I was gonna.
So it's sort of like a similar thing where like Darren Aronofsky made a bunch of great films, and you ask him what his favorite film is, and it's like the one everyone hated because he has to stand up for it like it's Ron Dane. Like, hey, this guy's not that bad. He just like underperformed his draft capital. 96 Stats is the one that everyone loves. Gets a ton of publicity. So I'm gonna cape up for some of the articles that don't do as well. I'll say not my best, not my favorite, but it's like definitely the most underrated is what I'm going to be doing next, which is my post-draft presser review, where I just lock myself in a room for 8 days and I watch endless amount of post-draft press conferences, every interview with a GM, head coach, area scout, what have you, where they break down who they drafted, why they drafted, what went into that. And so like GMs, head coaches, they lie all the time. This is like the one time they don't lie because they're just so excited they got their guy. They're like willing to like, okay, we drafted him as a blocking tight end. And I'm like, all right, don't draft him for fantasy. It's like, oh, we loved Brandon Ayuk. We had him as the number 2 wide receiver on the board. We tried to trade up to get him. It's like, all right, bump him up my rankings. So different things like that. And like, no one reads this article, but like, I love Dynasty. I put a lot of effort into my Dynasty rankings, and this is something that does go into it. So no one reads this article, but it's one of the most valuable pieces I do every year, and it'll be out probably 2 weeks from now.
So with that, have you ever come across a coach or a GM that you kind of felt wasn't as happy or didn't get their guy? Have you caught that?
Yeah. So my big conspiracy theory last year was that Brian Flores did not want Tua Tagovailoa, and the ownership forced him into that pick. If you watch the press conference, it was so bizarre. He just looked pissed off, and he just like, all right, let's do this. And then, so you got Tua. Was it a close call between Justin Herbert? Yes, very close. Justin Herbert is phenomenal. Justin Herbert, amazing deep ball, amazing maneuverability in the pocket. This guy's an athlete. And it's just like, you're hyping up Justin Herbert like crazy. And you're like, hey, and Tua, we picked him. So clearly we liked him, I guess. So yeah, I love putting on the tinfoil hat and engaging in conspiracy theories. My favorite are like Bill Belichick conspiracy theories where he has like tentacles and sleeper cells all within the league. But yeah, I don't know.
That's awesome. I'm with that.
Okay, one, I'm definitely going to have to go back and watch that press conference because I don't remember that, and I feel like I have to see it now. And two, I'm definitely, you've convinced me, not that I needed much convincing, but I'm definitely going to read your report because all of those things that you were saying about being able to take and analyze those different press conferences and the human action, reading the person, I'd never even thought about that as far as that being such a great way to actually analyze what they plan to do with that player. So yeah, that's good. That's awesome.
Sorry, Chair, I'm going to cut you off real quick. How much looking forward are you to the Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch pick number 3 press conference?
Yes.
So I think there's a big battle going on between Shanahan and Lynch for for third selection. Maybe it's all smoke and mirrors. We don't know, but I think that could be a very Brian Flores Tua-esque type press conference in itself.
Yeah, I mean, this is the big mystery. You want to solve the mystery. You find out why, who, what, how went into this, and I'm sick of the debates. The debate is never ending on Twitter. It's been months, and so now I just want to see the results, and I want to hear the reasoning behind his decision. Why Justin Fields apparently isn't even in the conversation, and luckily with Kyle Shanahan, we get one of the most honest coaches in football. He's not going to tell you anything right now, but as soon as that pick is made, he's gonna answer everything you need to know.
So yeah, let's take it to fantasy and your fantasy experience growing up. Tell us, of all the fantasy leagues that you've been in, what's your favorite league? What's the most special league to you and why?
Yeah, so I'll say it's like the first league I was ever in because it really made me fall in love with fantasy football. I was like, 11 or 12 years old, and my stepdad invited me to his friends and family, like fantasy football league that him and his buddies, a bunch of like 36-year-old guys, have been in for at least 10 years. And they immediately treated me like one of the guys where they just were phenomenal shit talkers, world-class shit talkers. And they gave it to me, week after week. And they were not gentle. And it was just so fun to interact with those guys and, be a part of it. And, I held my own. I finished like middle of the pack, just missed the playoffs. But after that, I was just like, the live draft was great where, guys got hammered and they gave each other shit and, dumped all over each other for each other's picks. And, so that was my all-time favorite. But yeah.
There's something to be said about those live drafts and just the buddies there. Every pick is like, oh, you took who?
Yeah.
You get that every single time, or, oh, you sniped me. An idiot. He took that guy. There's something about that. You said the trash talk. That's what makes a draft for me. Like I said, my favorite, I agree with you. The favorite drafts I have are the live drafts where you can see someone's expression. Kind of like those press conferences you talked about, because that right after each, that's when it's the purest. You know what I mean? You're getting the actual reaction from each of your draft mates, especially if you know them or you've known them for some period of time.
Yep.
So kind of keeping on that fantasy track, at what point did you decide, fantasy sports was more than just a hobby for you?
Immediately, I've heard the phrase like you dream into a vision or something like that. Dream it into existence, right? So like I said, I was like a bartender and I wasn't very good at it. And I like left this cushy 9-to-5 job out of college. And like part of my reasoning was, oh, I'm going to be a full-time fantasy expert. And I had like written like 2 articles ever for Number Fire under JJ Zacharyson. And I kind of just didn't really devote enough time to that as a bartender. Like I would just party with my friends or whatever. But like early on, I would just tell people, oh, I'm a fantasy writer. I have like 3 articles to my name. And then at a certain point, like I wasn't good at all, but I still, had that dream in my head. And then I wrote an article about Frank Gore and sort of just like everything clicked. Like JJ said, he wanted to hug me. He was like, you finally got it. And then every article from there on out was like phenomenal. When before I had multiple articles just get rejected, flat out rejected, or JJ would have to hold my hand through multiple edits. There on out was like phenomenal. And so finally picked up steam, and it's still like, okay, I'm going to be a full-time fantasy writer. It's going to happen. I had like 200 Twitter followers, and I still, and then like at a certain point, I was just like, I'm not happy with my life. I need this to become real. And I just like devoted everything to it, where it's like, all right, if I lose this relationship with this girl at the time, which I did because of this, so be it. If I, get fired from this job, so be it. Whatever happens. I'm just putting all of my energy into this. I tweeted like it was a full-time job, and eventually everything worked out in the end, and it came into existence. But like the dream was there well before I ever had any reason to believe it was possible.
You kind of spoken into existence, huh?
Right. That's the phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about the journey a little bit more. What are some of the challenges? What's some of the biggest challenges now versus when you started?
I don't know. Heightened competition. The industry is pretty good. More publicity. So like, I got a few really bad. The year before last was like, I couldn't have been any more correct. Last year was a pretty bad year. I really loved Hollywood Brown. I really loved Kite Edwards-Helaire. I really loved Cam Akers. Loved Antonio Brown, and like all those guys really underperformed. I got a lot of grief for it. Oh, I also didn't like Nick Chubb at all. Like I still have people pulling up that old tweet and, mocking me for it. But I mean, that's part of what it is, and it's fun. And, like I said, humility is important. I have a notebook where I keep track of all my calls, and I go back and I review it, and I try and learn from it. Was this a mistake I should have seen coming pre-hindsight? Or, was it just, 2 injuries in front of the guy and no one could have saw this coming? So it's just, you can't bet 1,000 every year. So you just got to learn from your mistakes.
Nice. You spoke a bit about like your favorite articles and stuff like that. What are some of your more memorable podcasts or interviews you've done with like players?
Like NFL players?
Yeah, or
well, I only have one, so
okay.
I could do that. PFF, when I was working there, they got me press passes to Giants training camp, which was like such a cool, surreal experience. I took like 1 million pictures and selfies and, posted all over social media and stuff like that for my friends back home. And I got to interview a few players. Geno Smith was the memorable one. So I asked the 2 backup quarterbacks, I forget who the other backup was at the time. I asked them, hey, do you have a favorite receiver, who you're really excited to throw the ball to on the game on Saturday? Is there anyone that's really stood out to you? And the one quarterback, Josh Johnson, I think, I might be getting the name wrong, just gave a very canned professional response, like the Belichick response, where it's like, all these guys have, done a really good job, and then Geno Smith gave like the wrong answer, where he was like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get the ball to my guy so-and-so. And so I'm a big DFS player, and preseason DFS is like my time to shine. It's like printing money. John Proctor is the all-time GOAT at it. And so, I got that. I passed it along to Johnny. we played Geno Smith stacked with this receiver, and he scored like 18 points. It wasn't the best, but it was like really good. So it was a profitable week. So a nice little self-serving question. But I know one of the other beat writers was like, "Oh, nice question."
That sounds like DFS insider trading going on right there. That's like, DFS is just barely starting to become legal in some states. You got the insider trading going on way back when. I might have to edit that part out after. You kind of mentioned that's kind of a highlight to get there with the Geno Smith, but you got a lot of those close buddies. You've jumped on a lot of people's podcasts. Was there that one podcast that you joined maybe that is like nonstop laughter that you just? It was probably like, a good old time. Who are your favorite wide receivers in the podcast that you were looking to podcast with?
What wide receivers do I want to podcast with?
Well, no, I was talking about you get a bunch of buddies together, kind of like Geno Smith was looking forward to throwing the ball to so-and-so. Who do you most look forward to podcasting with?
Yeah,
JJ
I'm corporate now, so I try not to say the wrong things, and I'm a little more tight-lipped, but you go back and listen to the old DFS Power Hour podcast. I have some wacky introductions where it's just like 10 minutes of me ranting about weird girls I went on a date with and just different things like that where, I'm just a nobody in the industry. I'm podcasting with my buddy, John Proctor, and I'm so nervous for it that I have to drink like 3 beers beforehand, and I'm a little too loose and sloppy. So Johnny, I could podcast with him all day. I'm excited for the draft. It's just going to be me, Graham Barfield, Wes Huber, maybe another friend or two, and we're just going to drink and we're just going to watch the draft and we're just going to BS, and that should be a fun time. I'll give a shout out to the True North podcast. They really blew me away with their fantasy knowledge. I hadn't heard about those guys until Graham a few days before was like, "Hey, you should do their podcast. They're smart." And just really knowledgeable guys. They put on a really good professional show like this one. This has been a really good, fun, professional show. Love the intro. That was fire. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Let's go to a fantasy dimension. Let's go to a different dimension. Let's say there's no fantasy sports at all. What would Scott be doing if there's no fantasy sports to talk about?
Yeah, so Rich Rebar and Matt Freeman and I have talked about this quite a bit. So I put in an insane amount of work and hours into becoming a full-time fantasy expert. I was working 50 hours per week with my full-time job, and then I would work another 40 hours per week writing articles, and I just had no life, and I just did that nonstop from wake up till I went to sleep, and I didn't get a lot of sleep. And if I didn't, I could have passed the bar and I could be making $200K right now. Or I have a bit of a hedge fund background too. I worked at a hedge fund. They promised me a job after I graduated, and then the owner actually sold the company 2 months before I graduated. So that was kind of bittersweet, but I do love investing. I do find it interesting. My buddy is way high up at a hedge fund. He had a story like me too, where he was just some schmo with a poli-sci major who started his own stock blog, and then some hedge fund in LA saw it and was like, "This guy's incredible. Let's hire him." And he worked his way up and, made a killing. He's basically retired now. He's just traveling the country and chilling. But I love talking stocks with him. I like talking investment, philosophy, Seth Klarman, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, whatever. So, hopefully, ideally something that makes a lot more money than, fantasy experts tend to. But yeah, who knows? I don't know. I'm really happy with what I'm doing. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Nice.
I know Major, he's big on the whole stock market there too. I see him doing weird things on Clubhouse all the time. I want to go back to what Smokey kind of said here, because I think if the Philadelphia Flyers ever did a hockey movie, you could be the stunt double for Claude Giroux. He kind of threw that out there. I think, let's see here. We could pull this one back up.
Who is this?
Good old Smokey Nelson from the Smoke Show.
Claude Giroux.
Claude Giroux. I should pull him up right now. He's a pretty good hockey player for the Flyers. Let's see if I can get a picture of him.
I'll take it. I get some bad celebrity comparisons. I got Michael Cena for years, and that always bothered me.
Michael Cena?
Yeah.
I don't see that.
That was pre-facial hair though, so puberty hit me really late, maybe. So, yeah, I'll definitely take that. I've also gotten an ugly Edward Norton. I've gotten some insulted, just like straight up like insults. Yeah.
Like,
So
hey, you
I don't
like
know.
an ugly Edward Norton. Like that's how is that how it works? Like that's crazy. I kind of see Edward. I see it now. I see
I
it.
see it.
Yeah, I'll
But
take
not
Ed
the
Norton.
ugly part.
Yeah, I don't want that, that adjective beforehand.
Man, who are these cruel people? These are
I know.
Probably
I had some
fantasy
bullies, I guess.
football buddies and stuff.
Yeah, and now for a living, it's just like a bunch of people telling me, why my takes are garbage. I just put a mock draft out. I'm like, yes, tell me why it's terrible. I'm excited for this.
Oh, here we go.
Is he good? I hope he's good. He's a captain.
I can
I'll take
kind of
that.
see
Yeah,
it.
he's definitely good. He's got the little bit of a beard. He's got the hair. He grows it out a little bit. The hockey flow. I can see that. That's a decent comparison. It's definitely no ugly Edward Norton, but
I can't skate. I'll say that. I remember going to my buddy's vacation home in like Vermont, and they have this ice pond, and his little 6-year-old sister was just like taking skating lessons the entire winter they were there, and she lapped me. It was just like the entire family was like on the ground laughing, and I just trying to scoot along. So yeah, no, not good at hockey. Not my forte, but I'll take the comp.
So transitioning back from the what if career back to the actual career. So you've had a very dedicated path, and you've talked about the amount of time that you've put into it, the amount of dedication, going head first into fantasy sports. That was it for you. So with that path that you took, what did fantasy sports teach you? Tell us a few things that you've learned through fantasy sports and that path that you've been on.
Yeah, I mean, everything I said about before, dream it into existence. There's a phrase, burn the ships, where it's like, you go to war with another island or something. You burn the ships. You don't give yourself an option to retreat. There's no surrender. It's do or die. And that's really what I made for myself. I was so prepared to, if I lose my full-time job, I'll move in with my parents, and I'll just try and find a way to make it work. I'll do, Patreon before Patreon ever existed. So there's that. And it's also the humility point too, when you're wrong a lot, and you're going to be wrong a lot, it really teaches you humility and learning from it, just, my running back philosophy is bell cow or bust. My overall draft philosophy is upside wins championships. And, I think I've just been a little too, focused in on that. I think there's more leeway there than I accounted for. There's outliers you have to allow for and things like that. So it's just, being open to being wrong and understanding you're going to be wrong quite a bit.
and wrong I am more often than not. And I love that, because draft season, we're talking about draft season is a fantastic point here, because you missed on Chubb, but he had his concerns. Your process was there. Okay, we know he's got these ACL injuries. Maybe that's a reason to knock him down on your board. Maybe we all have these different processes. As long as you show that process and how you got to the point where you got to, I've got no problem being wrong or being right on that player, because we are ultimately dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And we had Russell Clay on last night. One of the things he tweeted out here was, what were you doing at 20 years old? Well, I know exactly what I was doing at 20 years old. It was not even coming near the NFL. So, and I was making all kinds of mistakes in my personal life. So when we're evaluating these kids, you got to remember they're only 20 years old. Regardless of what your process is, there's still that human element in each and every one of them.
Yeah, I just want to say I hate being wrong. Like it really hurts my heart. I hate it. I put so much effort into it, and it matters so much more to me than anyone else. And it just
Yep.
I never wanted to be a hot take guy. I just wanted to be the most trusted source for rankings and things like that. But yeah, you're going to be wrong. And so Nick Chubb, Hollywood Brown, I was wrong for the wrong reasons. My reasoning was wrong. Nick Chubb, I think is a special case. And I would like just a little bit of time to get into what happened there. So I knew going in, it was going to be a 50-50 running back by committee situation. I knew Kareem Hunt was the favorite as a pass catcher. And when you're in a committee and you're not the preferred pass catcher, you are going to be game script sensitive. And so Cleveland was projected at only like 7.5 wins on the year. So not a lot of positive game script projected. They had the 4th worst run blocking offensive line in 2019. The one thing I admitted for was, hey, there's outliers like Derrick Henry and Adrian Peterson, and he might be the best pure runner in football, but these concerns mean I think he's overrated. Okay, again, he was the best pure runner in football last year. Also, out of nowhere, Wyatt Teller became the best guard in football. Didn't see that coming. Still only played 50% of the team snaps. He averaged 20-plus fantasy points per game. Him and Kareem Hunt were both top 12 running backs. It's only happened 2 other times in the past 30 years. I think the last time a running back had 50% of the snaps or less and finished as an RB1, and that's only happened like 3 times in the past 30 years. It's something crazy like that. So didn't see that coming. It hurts my heart, but I'll learn from it.
I think Cleveland also got aggressively weather hit at some point during the midseason to where they had like a whole bunch of like crazy windy games where they couldn't like really even throw the ball.
Yeah, that was insane. Yeah, I remember I kept having to adjust for it, and I'm like, oh wait, another Baker Mayfield game I have to throw out because it was 50 mile per hour winds. Why are they playing in a tsunami every week? I don't know.
Yeah, let's take it back to your career. Let me see my question here. My allergies are messing with me. I can't even see my screen. Relationships are really important. You've been dropping names this whole interview. Who are some of the names that you respect, the people that helped you to get to where you are today?
Oh my God, there's really so many. A lot of people who threw their support behind me really early, way too early before I was ever good. Some personal mentors. JJ Zacharyson deserves all the credit in the world. Like I said, I wasn't good early on, and he really, I didn't get paid a dime when I was at Number Fire, but I felt like I was getting paid like $500 per article just because of the personal, hands-on editing JJ gave me, because he made me such a better analyst, such a better writer, and he didn't need to do that. He was like already a big name guy, and he really took his time, and he's just like, oh my God, this kid doesn't get it. How many times do I have to explain this and this and this? And, he just had the patience, and he was overly kind. And, he did it in a way I can understand. And then I had that turning point where I finally got it, and it was all downhill running from there. So he deserves a ton of credit. Mike Clay was an editor for a while when I was at PFF. I thought he hated me, just like he was just like the most vicious editor. And then I met him in person. He's the nicest guy in the world. He just, he just wants things done in a certain way. Matthew Berry has helped me tremendously throughout my career. Probably the biggest mentor I've had. He's given me invaluable advice when it comes to what to do in this industry, which jobs to take. And he didn't need to do that. He did it really early on when I was a nobody. He sat on the phone with me for an hour and a half, and he's done that multiple times. So just a great guy, the fantasy football's biggest champion, and a personal friend. And I could just go on and on. There's so many great friends who've, helped me out along the way. That's one of the best things about this industry is the community.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to pay this is reminding me, I need to return the favor, because, a lot of people help me out.
There you go.
Awesome. And, in terms of the off season versus in season, we told us a lot about your in season process in terms of what you typically do with the dedication, the food, the Taco Bell, all that good stuff. So off season, what does off season look like for you?
I love it. I really love it. I get to write whatever I want to write, and I'm a workaholic, so I'm never going to be bored. Like I don't know if I'll ever be bored in my life again. But I'm having enough work that my mind is kept busy, and I'm having fun, and it's work I enjoy and want to do. But it's not all consuming where like my life goes out the window and I'm just like hovered over a Crunchwrap Supreme quietly sobbing. So it's just like the right balance, you know?
Yes. That's a lot of our everyday lives for us, you know?
Man.
We call that a Tuesday.
Taco Tuesday, baby.
Taco. So you spoke a lot about your work ethic, like working a full-time job and writing like it's a full-time job, tweeting like it's a full-time job, locking yourself in a room for 8 hours, 8 days just to get articles and stuff done. Can you give any advice for those of us trying to make it in this industry? Just some. What would you tell your younger self?
Be less of an asshole. Unfortunately, so early on, I just I felt so good about like my process and like this guy has 10,000 followers and like but he's wrong. Let me like tweet at him that he's wrong in a very aggressive way, and like it just like clearly rubbed people the wrong way, and like of course it did. So just like don't do that. Drunken Twitter feuds over nothing. Just stupid. Scott Pianowski and I actually had like a big blow up fight last year over Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just something stupid. And it was just so stupid on both of our parts. And then, he reached out to me via email, and like he was the bigger man because he reached out first, and he was like, "Hey man, I just want to say I'm sorry. I was in the wrong," and I was just like, shit, I'm sorry, I was in the wrong. And like we made up, and it's just like I think maybe it was coincidental, maybe it wasn't, that this happened right around when Chris Wessling passed away, and like he was such a beloved figure who like did things the right way, and everyone just unanimously loved him. And it's like should try and do that more. Stop being a drunken asshole, stop coming at people, stop being catty and snide. And it's just it's just could have been a nicer guy, could have been less of a dick.
Nice. Don't be a troll. Like that's the number one lesson.
Yeah, I was a troll for a long time, and I think it was just a chip on my shoulder. I wanted full time so bad, and I thought I was deserving of it. I wasn't, but I thought I was, and it came at the right time because it came when I was ready for it. But it was just tearing people down to build myself up kind of thing. It was like it was sad, and it was immature, and it was I learned from it.
So was part of that seeing like some of the people that you kind of started with get full-time jobs and you weren't getting that job yet, or was it just you were just going after everyone?
Yeah, so I mean, I love Graham with all my heart, like just one of the best guys in the world, a really close friend. He got hired at Fantasy Guru, and I interviewed in person for that job, and they hired him over me. For NFL, they hired him over me. It was like something else, another thing I don't know that I could really talk about, but like another gig where like it was really close and it didn't happen. But I mean, there was no jealousy there just because it was like Graham, and I just love him so much. But yeah, I mean, I definitely saw that, and there was like petty jealousy on my part. That was just like it's sad that I was that person. But I might be also a little too hard on myself. But yeah, it was hey, I'm ready for this. I want this. I'm deserving of it. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. But don't think like that. Just your time will come when it's ready. And for me, my timing couldn't have been any more perfect. It was like right when I was ready for it, it happened. And it was like, I went in right away. PFF's like, we want 5 articles per week, every single week. And like, I was ready for it. I was mature enough to not get into Twitter fights. I mean, there was a little bit of that, like not to the degree that there was and things like that. So, yeah.
Hey, I'm the last one to pass judgment on pettiness because I literally started a website just so I wouldn't be called a fan in the Scott Fishbowl anymore. So I can't say nothing. So for those who don't know where to find you, can you kind of let everyone know where to find you, talk a little bit on fantasy points here a little bit, and just share what you can.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Scott Barrett DFB. You could subscribe to my website, fantasypoints.com. Tons of great stuff. I'm a really bad salesman, but we have the Greg Cosell draft guide. My post-draft presser articles are coming out. I just did a mock draft just for fun. It's kind of silly and dumb, but you can read it for free. You could check out my Dynasty rankings and like the countless amounts of hours that went into finalizing my model to spit those numbers out. My thoughts on the class and a bunch of stuff like that. So fantasypoints.com.
Oh, before we let you go, you talked a bit about stocks and stuff. Give me your top 3 stocks. Are you a options trader? Are you buy and hold? What's your style?
Yeah, so I kind of just rather not to give a top 3, but I will say, my strategy is like, not an options trader, very much, Warren Buffett style value investor, which by the way, is not doing great in this market comparatively. I mean, to an extent, but I mean, you just see Tesla taking off and things like that. And I'm just like, it's not a good stock, but like whatever. It's really just something I have fun with. And, again, the humility, like it's a hobby.
It will humble you quickly.
Well, luckily for me, I'm too cheap to even think about losing money. That's kind of mind you, I got 12 kids here, so there's a reason why I do that. But as we close out the show today, for Tara, for Major, for Scott, I leave you with this. Make sure you go out and buy some stocks in fantasypoints.com. I don't know if that's actually trading or not, but I thought that'd be a nice little way to segue out of the show.
Good job.
And the timing of Scott Barrett being on the show today is perfect, and timing is everything. Thank you again, Scott, for joining us. Tara, Major, we'll see you next week.